we have Abdu. Abdu just burst into our group, and he's been doing wonderful things. He's a librarian and researcher at the Yusuf Maitama Sule University, Kano. And he's quite a passionate advocate of OER and open education in general. Then also we have Esther Simon Ngamba. She's from Tanzania. She is a librarian in the College of Business Education. She had been with the Tanzanian Library Board before she got into that place. She's also the creator of this system that they call Library Users Alert Message System. I hope that maybe one day we'll have time to find out how it works so that we can also copy that. Another person we have today on the panel is David. David is from Kabarak University, Kenya. He's a Research for Life Master Trainer. He's a young African library leader. He advocates for OER. And then interestingly about David, he's a Kenyan Sign Language interpreter, and he's quite conversant with basic Russian language. Librarians are doing awesome things now. Imagine a librarian that can speak Russia from Kenya. So these are the 4 people that we are going to speak with today. Then also along the line, I'm going to bring in Liz and Tony because it's important that they help us understand some of these things that we want to go into. Yesterday, we talked about a lot about where we are now, the things that we are doing, you know. Like today, we want to look more at from here to the next level. How do we navigate it? How do we do it? And first of all, I have a question for Abdu. Abdu, are you there? So the first question, it goes to you. Yeah, it goes to you, Abdu. What impact do you think this overview that we are talking about, that it will have on the African library sector? Especially, how can it be deepened for different library types, academic library, public libraries, and so on, because it's not just for academic libraries alone. So how can it be deepened, especially because we are interested in this, especially in the area of policy making? How do we get everybody to be on the same page so that we can begin to look for, or how do I put it? We'll begin to now think about policies that will guide us in our different institutions. Abdu, that's for you. Thank you. Hello, Abdu, are you still there? Hello, Abdu, are you still there? We seem to have lost him for a while, but that his question is still pending, and I hope he comes back so that he can answer it for us. I can see that there are people here from Egypt, Nigeria, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda. All of us, we are all welcome. South Africa, Botswana, and so on. So now let me move on to Dr. Hope while we wait for Abdu to come back online. Dr. Hope, are you there?
Yes.
Hello.
I am
there. Great. Yes, my beautiful sister.
Hello.
My beautiful sister. Yes, I can hear you. So I have a question for you. Is a double barrel one? Oh, Zimbabwe too. Yeah, bet. I'm glad that you're here. So I want to ask you, how do you think that we can build, when I say we, I mean AFLIA, can build the capacity of librarians as pertains to OER? Especially now, I want to zero in on academic libraries because that's where you work, you know. And I want to ask, how can librarians in academic libraries, in academic institutions, in these institutions of higher learning, how can they build the capacity of lecturers, researchers, and students on OER? Dr. Hope?
Okay, thank you, the moderator. Thank you, the listeners. I am glad to be part of this wonderful program, and I'm so glad that you are also here. I've been asked to discuss how I think the capacity of librarians can be built as pertains to OER, that's open educational resources. To answer these questions, permit me to briefly explain who is a librarian and what is capacity building and what is OER. Keywords on my topic. A librarian is a person who works professionally in a library, providing access to information and knowledge. Capacity building is the process of developing and strengthening the skills and the abilities an individual needs to survive, adapt, and thrive in a fast-changing world. Open educational resources are learning, teaching, and research materials in any format and medium are under copyright and have been released under open license. You can see this definition on page 9 of our working document. Librarians. We need capacity building to improve on our services, to be more effective, to be more efficient, to be more productive, and to be more relevant. Permit me to say that capacity building is needed where there is any innovation, that is a new method of doing things or new ideas, just like we have today in OER. To majority of African librarians, OER is an innovation. Yes, it is something new that has been introduced about it, including myself, even though it is very relevant to our profession. We cannot shy away from this development. We must embrace it just the way we embrace ICT in our libraries, and today it is paying off. Therefore, let me take the first aspect of my question, which goes like this. How do I think the capacity of librarians as pertains to OER can be built? And these are the steps I am recommending. Number one is training librarians on all aspects of OER. Training librarians on all aspects of OER, librarians of all cadres, librarians from all types of library. We need training on all aspects of OER. Physical training, online or hybrid training on how to create OER, how to access OER, how to reuse OER, how to adapt and distribute or redistribute OER. If you look at our working document in page 18, it was indicated that very few, national or regional library associations have been involved in capacity building or training in OER for librarians, which was organized by AFLIA. And so many of us are yet to be trained on OER. So that is the first step I am recommending for AFLIA, train the librarians. Then the second action is on page 45 of our working document. And what is it all about? Is still talking about capacity building. Now, librarians should continue learning about open knowledge. We don't just learn it today and then we close the chapter. We don't just learn it today. After this discussion, we forget about it. No. the learning should, be continuous. We should learn about open knowledge. We should learn about the possibilities that open knowledge provides for quality and inclusive education, especially in our educational system. So the third point is, or third step is that we librarians should lead in training our user communities. I work in a university environment. My user communities there are lecturers, researchers, and students. So I, as a librarian, after I might have been trained, I should go ahead to train my user community so that they too will have, a balanced understanding of open licenses and OER. The first step is that librarians should, understand what quality assurance as pertains to OER is. And they should also ensure that there is quality assurance, for the OER created in our institutions, in our libraries, for the use of our communities. The first step is that librarians should be trained, so that in return, they will train their members on how to use open content. That is what this OER is all about, open content, open knowledge. Our community members should know how to use it, how to open it, how to use it, how to find it, how to evaluate the content. And we cannot do these things if we don't have the knowledge of opening, open licensing, if you don't have the knowledge of, why open licenses and OER are important. We don't have the knowledge of how to identify high quality open content. We can't pass the knowledge across, to our user communities, unless if we know it then. If we have these, knowledge, it will help us. Then librarians need training on designing of suitable metadata. We should learn how to design suitable metadata and tagging systems so that OER materials can be easily discovered and used. And we should bear in mind, at all times that it is free access. We are not paying anything. So all that I have said so far revolves around training and retraining of librarians. Now, let me go to the second aspect of my question, which is how can librarians build the capacity of lecturers, researchers, and students on OER? Like I said before, lecturers, researchers, and students are, members of my own communities. They fall among my user communities. So you can equally find out, who and who make up your user communities. And then the steps I am going to, deliver here can guide you on how to do what? Build capacity on OER for them. Number one is that we should organize outreach activities to create awareness of OER. We should organize workshops. We should organize lectures. This is necessary because, majority of them, they don't know anything about OER, about opening licensing. They don't know, even though they're, professors, in their fields, they're associate professors and so on and so forth. So we, as librarians in Africa, we should carry this knowledge to them, transfer it to them, so that they too will be able to, have access to quality educational resources, materials, and tools, free of charge. We should also, organize outreach activities for students also, for researchers. Then the second step is that librarians should take lead in training the user community. Like I said before, take lead. We should not go and hide. If we have the knowledge, we should come out and use and transfer it to, our community users. Many lecturers, many students, they are not able to, access or afford the required good quality learning resources they need today due to poor socioeconomic background, due to high cost of educational materials, high cost of living, among other points. But by using OER, they can have access to quality educational resources, quality educational material, free of charge.
Thank you, Dr. Hope. Okay, thank you, Dr. Hope. I think that you've made your point so that we don't repeat ourselves. But the key points that you raised are that librarians need to be trained. Yes. There are no two ways about it, because this is a new thing. This is a new field for almost all of us. we are still, I never heard of all this in school. I don't know the school that is teaching, the library school that is teaching OER now all over Africa. It's possible that there are some, but I don't know of them. So we need to be trained and retrained, and then we need to be able to step up to this, to our duties. And when we receive training, train the people in our user communities, lecturers, students, so that they will know that these things exist. These are the ways through which you can find them. This is how you can evaluate the one that is good or the one that is not good, so to speak. Then you want to create some yourself. Oh, this is how you can do it. We may not have all the technical skills, maybe on embedding videos and stuff like that, but at least we can tell them that, hey, you can do this if you want to do this. And if you want to, as you're doing it, these are the places where you can get materials that can help you build up your own open educational resource. So thank you for that, Dr. Hope. We'll still get back to you on this. Abdul says that he's back. Abdul, are you back now? Hello, Abdul. Are you back now?
Can you hear me? Yes, I am
Yes,
back.
we can hear you.
Hear
all
me?
right. Remember your question,
okay, I
please?
am back. Thank you.
Do you remember the question I asked you?
I haven't. Can you repeat it, please?
All right. We asked
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. We say that this overview is now out. Everybody now knows it is out, or many people know it is out. How can the impact of what we want to achieve with it, how can it be deepened for different library types, especially in the area of policy making? Because policies are important. We need them to guide us. And even in the OER recommendation itself, one of the 5 action areas, it talks about policies, just like it talks about capacity building too. So how can we do it? How can we do it?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Greetings to all of you from Al-Qasim Amisi here in Yusuf Metamasla University, Kano, Nigeria. Actually, we can deepen the work by doing so many things. But librarians need to be on the center of these advocates. First of all, I think librarians should try to raise the awareness and advocate for the adoption of open education and open educational resources among the government agencies. There are government agencies that are very important in whatever policy you want to see in our institutions. For example, the National Universities Commission, pt2 as the major founder of education in Nigeria, they are very important. If librarians can wage an advocacy and get the attention of these agencies, they can easily issue a policy that will go a long way in making sure that our educational system is OER compliance. For example, there is a grant from the pt2 in Nigeria to produce books for the Nigerian educational system. But unfortunately, there is no any condition or any requirement that at the end of the production, the product should be free, or at least, or at maximum should be under open license. At the end, I once saw such kind of product in the market. So one of the idea behind this this agitation for open education is that taxpayers should not be charged twice over educational resources. Look at this case. At the beginning, it is from the taxpayers pt2 funded the production of the books, but at the end, someone manipulates it and take the books to the market for sale. So in such a situation, you can say that taxpayers are being charged twice. So actually, librarians need to work with government agencies. And in addition to government agencies, development partners are very important. Possibly many of us are aware of the work of Commonwealth of Learning. Most of their OER programs, especially these programs hosted by the NUC, they were funded or they were supported by the Commonwealth of Learning. But there were no librarians in the process. Possibly this is why the process stopped at the top of the system. It couldn't reach the bottom of the system. So librarians should try to see that they work with development partners. Even in United States, you will see that there is agency Flora Williams and Hewlett. They are very visible in all OER projects and open education projects. They fund it. And as a result of that, there is enough funding for the development of open educational resources. So librarians in Africa, they should try to identify funders, not necessarily from outside of Africa, possibly from within. Let us understand the importance of open education and open educational resources so that they can be willing to finance the projects and the programs around the area. Remember, despite open educational resources are free at the end, but remember, still there is need for fund to finance the production. And this fund is being paid or sourced from someone. So you need to get someone who will pay it at once so that citizens will get these resources free of charge. Don't assume that open educational resources are being produced free of charge. No, there must be fund for the open educational resources to be produced before other people can get them free of charge. So librarians should lead these advocacy, should try to identify funders and the development partners within and outside so that they can work with them. Also, the librarians need to work with the National Library Association. Actually, National Library Association, although recently I can see in Nigeria some chapters of the National Library Association, they are putting OER as part or as something in their conferences. But this is not enough, actually. Possibly there should be a whole conference around that theme. In addition to that, there should be conferences wholly organized around that theme also. These conferences will make it possible for the crusade to reach the bottom. There is also need for our educational institutions to understand the importance of open education and open educational resources so that they can make it a policy that their staff should at the end release their product, what they produce, what they authored, they will release it under open license. So these are some of the measures which I think if librarians will lead, they will make sure that the call has reached the bottom of the system. So this is the little I can offer with regard to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abdul. I heard quite a lot. You talked about the importance of librarians leading in awareness creation and advocacy for development of policies on open education. And then you spoke of this example that really hurt me, grant from TET Fund for Nigerian educational system to get books. And then, those books, instead of them being free or openly licensed, they find their ways to the market where people will go and buy them again. Meanwhile, they were paid for by the taxpayers' money. I think that maybe we do not know enough about stuff like this, or maybe the Nigerian Library Association, they do not know when this kind of things happen, and we let such slide. Then you also talked about how libraries need to reach the efforts of the development agencies so that impact can be felt at all levels as pertains to OER. because if they work only with the bosses on top without the librarians, then it will stop there. It won't affect the user communities of libraries that are meant to have those books or are meant to have access to openly licensed materials, or that are meant to learn how to create or author or write openly licensed materials. Then he also talks about the role of national library associations to create this awareness, to help people know about it, so that it will be a mighty force of librarians advocating for this, and not just the idea of maybe a lone voice in the wilderness. So we need more voices on this. Thank you very much for that, Abdul. We'll still get back to you on this. Hello, Esther, are you here? Hello, Esther. Esther Ngamba.
Yes, I'm here, Doctor.
Yes, Esther, glad to hear your voice. So I remember that you helped us to translate the OER logo.
Yes.
You know, because when we talk of the OER, we also talk of translation, because OER, you know, they have open licenses, different types that some can help you adapt. And in adapting a resource, you are allowed to translate. So you helped us to translate the OER logo into Swahili. I remember Kiswahili.
Yes.
Swahili, yes. And then, yeah. So how do you think librarians can be encouraged to learn translation skills and use open licensing to increase and make their resources more equitable and fully representative of their user communities? I hope you got my question, you know, because sometimes you go to libraries and, oh, the books are wonderful, beautiful, colorful, everything. But when you go into them, you find out that they mostly talk of other people, other cultures, other things in other climes. Sure, knowledge is universal, but sometimes when you bring it down to what really affects you as a community, you know, then people can say, oh, this one is about us. So how can we use translations and how can we use translation skills and open licensing to increase and make this resources more available in our different libraries? Thank you, Esther. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Esther. Simon Ngamba, I'm a librarian from Tanzania. I'm working in the College of Business Education. Okay, and now I'm going to answer the question that how can librarians be encouraged to learn translation and use open licensing to increase and make their resources more equitable and fully representative to their user community. First of all, we need to understand as a librarian the meaning of OER, that is open education sources. But all librarians, I know that we have our local languages. For example, in Tanzania, we have local languages that is Kiswahili. When we talk when we talk in Swahili, but in English we call it as a Swahili. That is translate OER in rasilimali za elimu ya wazi. So librarians encouraged to translate the OER in their user community language used for communication. That is easier to everyone understand and what OER means. The librarians are encouraged to use Google Translate as a backup, but always double check it, because the translation of Google systems does not handle a certain accent markers properly. So as a librarian, we must make sure that our logo translations are well known to all librarians, so as that to present its meaning, advantages, and the easiness to use the user community. Librarians also are encouraged to learn translation on OER and the use of open licensing in order to increase and make the resources more equitable via UNESCO. I can say we can use UNESCO OER recommendations, that is capacity building, policy setting, inclusion and equity, sustainability, and cooperation across borders. In capacity building, librarians can build their capacity by via trainings and raising awareness on OER, as well as its potential benefits in driving equality education through face-to-face and online training that can be done via organized workshops, webinars, or seminars on topics such as OER translations according to the languages used in their areas. Librarians also can be invited to attend those workshops in order to learn, because librarians can become ambassadors of OER as professionals who can answer inquiry about OER, open licenses, and open knowledge in general. Also, librarians can be encouraged by visiting them in their libraries to train them on OER translations, because when we are visiting them, we will get more number of librarians via their institutions. Also, we can build their capacity on OER through posters and leaflets, or produce pamphlets on how OER can meet their user community needs, information needs. Also, use of online meeting where possible for librarians that can afford to attend Zoom meeting. Also, librarians can learn on open licensing. First of all, we need to know about open licensing. That is a legal statement that grants permission to access, reuse, and redistribute a work with a few or no restriction. For this statement, African librarians will be trained on open licensing usage on 5 areas that retain, reuse, revise, remix, and redistribute resources. But they will ensure that all guides about open licensing are known well to all librarians, such as public domain, that is allows sharing and adoption without attribution, either because the material is already in the public domain, or to know about attribution that allows and sharing and adoption for any use, including for commercial purpose. They need to know all guides about open licensing, such as attribution share like, attribution on non-commercial, attribution non-commercial share like, and the like. So in order to ensure that when they are training other librarians, or they are training the user community about open licensing, they themselves are understanding more about open licensing. That knowledge, okay.
Thank you very much, Esther, because you've used up to your time. Thank you. But we had quite a lot of things. You know, you spoke about when we want to translate. Please don't trust Google Translate fully. And then we need these translation skills that will help us to know what we are translating. Then he talks about open licensing and librarians needing to know about how it works so that they can be able to train others, and then also apply it in their own libraries. Like if they want to translate books and so on, understand that it's not every book you can that gives you the power to translate it. There are some that will give you the power, that will give you that leverage. Some do not give you that permission. Thank you for that, Esther. So now, David, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Oh, great. So I'm going to ask you this question. It was raised in the WhatsApp group. And let me also use this opportunity to tell everybody that has joined that group, thank you very much. We learn a lot there. So it may be quiet now, but just get ready for the day it gets really loud and not rowdy, but everybody contributing at the same time. So somebody raised a question, somebody suggested a central repository of OERs in Africa. And I want to ask your candid views. I'm not saying it's good, I'm not saying it's bad. Is it workable? Is it worthwhile? Who will take the lead? Or can we just start small in our different institutions and then see if there's a way to link all up? Can we start small? You have only 7 minutes for your answer because I'm watching the time and it's as if we are getting lost. David, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. And good evening, everyone, and greetings from Kabarak University. So to answer this question, I'm going to take you, or I'm going to give you a little history so that we can understand about this central repository that we should have in Africa. The history I'm going to give is about the UNESCO OER recommendation, how it came about. And in the year 2016, there was a proposal to the UNESCO governing bodies that a recommendation be done. Then after this, there was a study to show if it was a good idea. And the response was yes, perhaps it was a good idea. And then after that, there was a congress of all member states in developing a text for recommendation. Text that was used for this recommendation was built on Lupiana OER action plan, which itself was a consulted document. And I can say it was consulted much than anything. It went through steps, perhaps meeting agreement by member states, where member states were invited to represent their government. It was something like a diplomat. So when the UNESCO is doing their things, they don't vote, but they do things, or they rather they try to get things done by consensus, which means everyone has to agree. Now that's how the UNESCO recommendation developed. Now about this question, Africa right now, we are proposing that we have this kind of repository. And I feel that we should propose to the UNESCO Council to have this kind of repository. But before we do that, we should also we should conduct a study to get views from experts and also the librarians in Africa to give us their views, not by voting, but everyone has to agree, because we do it by consensus, meaning that everyone has to agree, but not we don't encourage voting. So, and then we have to revisit our OER recommendation so that it can guide us in coming up with this central repository in Africa. So according to me, I can say it's a good idea. We can come up with one so that it can help us to mainstream the OER, or open educational resources, into our educational systems in our institutions or in our libraries in Africa. Yes, that's my views about that.
Thank you very much for that, David. Thank you. You talked about having a consensus, and it's not, for me, this is not a one-day thing, but having a consensus, you have to think again. How many countries in Africa have policies, national ones, on open education? Because that may boil down to knowing that and knowing how agreeable they'll be to getting this done, having policies on open science, open education, all the open, so that one is, I threw in this question because it was something that needed to be in the open so that we now know this is possible or this is not possible. Now, there's a question I'm going to jump. Let me get to Liz and Tony. Liz and Tony are here. I can see Liz. All right, they are here. All right, they are here. So I want to ask Liz and Tony, rising from what David said and others have said, after the overview, how best can we keep track of what is happening? Or have history, or collect our stories so that when next OER is being discussed and they want to speak about Africa, of course, OER Africa will be there, but I'm sure that OER Africa will also say, let me call librarians. These people, they've been doing this or this and that and that and that. So how can we achieve that? How can we, as African librarians, get a seat in discussions about OER in Africa? Liz and Tony.
If I could speak first, and what I would like to do is focus very specifically on this wonderful series of webinars. I've been incredibly impressed by the presentations, by the input from the participants, and from the number of people who have joined the WhatsApp group. So I know I look forward to learning more from you. I've learned a lot during these webinars, and I've learned things that I didn't know before. I learned from Florence about all of the activities in her country on the ecosystem of open knowledge. I've learned about 2 wonderful OER tutorials on environmental degradation in Nigeria, which I had never heard of before. And I would encourage you to go to the WhatsApp groups and look up the URLs. And it was a librarian, a Nigerian librarian who was responsible for that work. But what I think is really necessary, to pick up on what Nkem said, is these efforts aren't being documented properly. For example, a few years ago, AFLIA ran a fair, a competition on our Africa and my Africa. And it was really impressive to see how many libraries participated, but nothing has been done since then, and AFLIA itself didn't document what had happened. And it wasn't until Nkem and I began talking that she remembered the activity that she herself had coordinated. So I think that what needs to be done before anything is to document some of these activities that have been discussed. I'd like to know more from Florence, for example, on what she means by the ecosystem. and activities that have been undertaken so that AFLIA can decide how best to pursue it. I'd like to know more about the OER that's been created on environmental change and degradation. And I wonder whether that could be publicized more broadly, certainly within Nigeria, but also in other countries in Africa. And because it's an OER, it can also be adapted. So I'm going to stop here, but I'd like to leave us with a good feeling because of the participation, but then a feeling of what do we have to do in order to document achievements within Africa and the challenges that remain. And then I think it's possible to talk about having a prominent seat at the table. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz. Thank you for that. Documentation is really critical. You know, like you said, I honestly forgot about that campaign that we ran. And Doreen has been saying, Nkem, let's do this again. Nkem, let's do this again. So, you know, this is like an opportunity to, we have looked back and we hope that we are going to do it again to give African libraries the opportunity to collect their oral or their local knowledge. And this time, because we have this idea of open licensing now, we can now go further and say, when you collect it, handle it this way, do it this way so that others will also have access to it. Thank you for that, Liz. Tony?
Great, thanks very much. I know that Stanley asked us to put on our videos, so I'm actually doing this. I think I'm the first one to do it. Thanks very much for the question. Look, there's loads of things that people can do to get a seat at the table. And I would say that you've got to stay informed about, so, I mean, we heard from one or two people that they need to be, and their colleagues need to be capacity built around OER. Once you have learnt about them, you need to stay informed. There's a very important conference next year in Kigali in 2024, which is e-learning Africa. If anyone could go there, that would be great to go to it, because that will include aspects of OER. There's the networking. Liz has already mentioned the wonderful WhatsApp group that is growing bigger and bigger. You can join the WhatsApp group, but you can also create others in your own institutions, your own country, etc. And you could post things from the main WhatsApp group onto those as well. One of the best ways of learning more is to actually help build capacity with colleagues. So we all know that if you teach something, you learn it better. So if you could advocate for OER and open access publishing, that would be great. You know, capacitate yourself a little bit more and then run workshops for colleagues. Collaborate with educators in your institutions. If you're in a university, collaborate with some of the lecturers and others. You can create OER repositories. You can localize content. You can translate stuff into your own languages and repost it as OER. You can conduct research. These are just a few of the things. And what I'd like to say is that as long as you're involved, as long as you stay informed and involved, then you will have a seat at the table in discussions about, OER in Africa. I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Tony. You said we need to be informed and then involved. Those are key words, you know, knowing what is happening around the world as pertains to open education, OER. And then where it is happening and when, so that you can throw yourself in and get involved. You also spoke about a conference on e-learning in Africa. I think is next year. Let's look forward to that, because they need to hear our voice. They need to hear the voice of African librarians to know what we have been up to, because quite a lot has been going on, and we can't keep quiet, because being involved is also talking about what you have been doing. So thank you for that. Then let me jump back to Abdul and David. Two of you, I have this question for two of you today. It will be our last question before we now go into all the questions we have, because we have up to, I think, 8 questions here. So now, how do you think we can think of sustainable models of OER in Africa? I'm asking this in full awareness of sometimes we have problems with plagiarism. You know, sometimes we have problems with, you know, English is a second language, and somebody wants to create something in English language, and the person doesn't have a core grasp of the language. It happens. So who can create the standards? Who will be the gatekeepers so that quality is ensured? So that down the line, when we now go global, because I believe we are going to go global, when we now go global, nobody will come and say, oh, this one is trash. Oh, this one, it doesn't make sense. Why should this kind of thing be propped up as OER from Africa? You know, that kind of thing. So who's going to lead this so that we can have these sustainable models of OERs in Africa? David and Abdul, who tackles this first? You have just 2 minutes because our time is running.
Okay, yeah, I come in.
Yes. 2 minutes you have, please.
Okay, the issue of standard. There are already a lot of standards available. And you remember, since we are in this arena of education, we can easily borrow, amend, so to suit our purpose. But the most important is to make sure that the standards are adopted and respected by the key stakeholders. For example, the most important thing about producing educational resources is peer review. And educational resources cannot to ensure that it is qualitative. There must be expert review attached to it. So we can adopt that, but the issue is that we should make sure that the resources that are going to be produced to be accepted as OER and used within open education, they need to undergo this expert review for quality checking and other things. So to me, I think the issue of standard rests with making sure that we make sure the standard are adopted and the standard are respected in producing open educational resources.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You said standards must be adopted and respected. Then you talked about expert review, so that if you know that you don't know anything about accounting, why do you go to create OER on accounting? Meanwhile, you are a specialist or you have knowledge about dressmaking. Do that one. That will help us more than you dabbling into what you do not know. All right, David, 2 minutes from you.
Okay, thank you. We need to have or to develop these innovative solutions and new sustainable value-added models to ensure that learners have access to high-quality educational experience. And we are talking about let me talk about a few models, about the funding models that we need to consider. We have some technical models, staffing models, and also the content models. I believe those models will help our learners have access to high quality educational experience. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So, David, you spoke about innovative solutions. Then you talked about having models. How do we, let's think of having technical models. If you're going to create an OER, this is like a kind of the basics that should be in it technically. Then quality models, content models, and so on. So thank you very much. Now I'm going to answer the questions. Okay, I'm going to bring out the questions that people have raised here because we need to hear from everyone. Remember, you can write your question in the chat or in the Q&A, use the Q&A feature to write it. An anonymous attendee wrote and said something, you know, because I remember, I think the person wrote it when Dr. Hope was speaking about those that work professionally in libraries. And an anonymous attendee asked, how do you reconcile the para-professionals and the professional librarians in different types of libraries, especially in academic libraries? That the person feels that there needs to be a balance so that people will continue their duties. So that is, I don't think is within the purview of this webinar, but Hope, do you want to take a bite at it? Hello, Dr. Hope, you want to take a bite at this?
Hello, moderator.
Yeah, you take a bite at this. The person is asking, I said that the person asked a question when you spoke about librarians being professionals that work in libraries. And the person wrote and said, the person is an anonymous attendee, said, how do you reconcile the para-professionals and the professionals in libraries? That there needs to be a balance so that we can all work well together. And I said, I don't think it's a part of, it's within the purview of this, but it's because you use that word, professional librarians. You know, these are issues, controversial issues. But I said, if you want to have a bite at it, 1 minute, how do you think that these people, whether they are professionals or para-professionals, can all work within the libraries to promote OER?
Okay.
1 minute, please.
Yes, I mentioned the professionals when I was trying to, you know, give explanation on who is a librarian. That is, a librarian is somebody, you know, who works professionally in a library. So, in my own opinion, whether you are a professional librarian or a paraprofessional, we all, you know, are doing the same thing. For instance, those that we call paraprofessionals, they're the people that have, you know, ND and HND in library and information science. They went through, you know, professional training, librarianship. And those that are professionals are those that have from, you know, degree, you know, and above. But we all are doing the same thing. If we are trained, we can do the same thing, do a lot to achieve whatever we want to achieve, you know, as pertaining to OER.
All right, thank you very much. Because those people, they have their own skills too. Whether you have a lower qualification or you have a higher one, there are people, we all have a peculiar skills, sometimes professionally and sometimes the innate ones. So we can use all of them in ensuring that we drive OER in our institutions. Thank you for that, Hope. Then Lucky asks a question. What are we doing or should do to save the job of librarians in this time of high ICT expanding every day and with the emergence of OER and AI? Hello, Abdul, can you answer that? 1 minute, please.
Okay, this is very simple, I think. The librarians should work up and try to entrench themselves within this IT revolution. There are so many opportunities. There are so many gaps that librarians are the best candidate to fill. For example, even this issue of coordinating OER and open education programs, actually librarians have a seat there. So actually, for librarians to sustain their relevance, they need to work on. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And then there's this interesting question here. Somebody said, can AFLIA open up debate on the need for accrediting library associations in Africa? I believe this question, it came up because somebody spoke about library associations and the need for library associations to be a part of this. So the person said, open up a debate for accrediting library associations in Africa. And then the person said, also goes on to say that we must support each other as Pan-African brothers and sisters. So how can it be made easy for African librarians to work in their sister countries? Let's say somebody in Zimbabwe will come to work in Nigeria because you're in the same profession. That's a heavy one. Who answered this for us? Who answered this for us? Can David? Do you want to take a bite at this? The question is actually twofold. Accredit library associations. I don't know if the person meant library associations or the person meant librarians, because I know that right now, LETIS, that's the Library Education and Institute and Training, whatever, that's the section in charge of library schools in AFLIA. They've been advocating for a curriculum, not change, not, I don't want to call it change, but to have a kind of template, a curriculum that will take in so many new trends and who we are as Africans, so that library schools can look at that template and say, oh, let's take from here, let's do this one, let's do that one too. Oh, we don't need this one, you know, that kind of thing. So I know they are working on it now. Maybe that's what the person means. And then David, so can you answer, please? Thank you. Hello, David, have I lost him? All right.
Can you repeat the question?
All right. Okay, the person is asking, the person said it should not be difficult for African librarians to work in any sister country. We must support each other as Pan-African brothers and sisters. That's what the person wrote here. Okay, so I'm asking, how do you think it can be done?
Thank you. The first thing is this issue of open educational resource supports sustainable development called the SDGs. And one of the objectives of SDG is it promotes partnership. That is the goal number 17. Now, let me give you an example here why we have this open movement. Take against that, I have an idea in Kenya, and I've tried to communicate this thing to my minister, and it seems things are not working well. So what I need to do through this open movement now, I can say that let me travel to my neighbor country, that is Uganda. Let me try to communicate that idea to those, maybe those experts in that area, perhaps maybe a UNESCO in that area, and then that maybe UNESCO now will take that idea and then they will try to communicate to my my government here in Kenya, so that that idea can be implemented. So that's the partnership. It can work through this open movement.
Yes, actually, you know, one of the action areas of the UNESCO OER recommendation is to build collaborations across borders, you know, and then to, you know, learn from other countries and know that's international cooperation, collaboration. So maybe that is something we can look at to down the line as we get into this. Then this, I want to can I jump this question? Should we make the membership to country library associations compulsory? I want to jump it now. Let's keep it for the last because we may not have enough time to go into questions that are not within the purview of this webinar. Then somebody asked, how can the funds, what does that mean? How can, maybe the person wanted to write, how can funds be generated for OERs? That's how, where will you get the funds to create OERs, and how can OER be included in library and information science curriculum? I know that Abdul talked about grants, so please can you take this? Okay. Hello, Abdul, are you still here? Yes. How can funds be generated for OERs, especially in a place like Nigeria, and then how can it be included in the curriculum for library and information science?
Well, thank you very much. Like, let me use Nigeria as an example. There is this state fund, a fund specifically designed to fund education. If we can be able to persuade the leadership of the fund for them to recognize OER and make it a condition for their grants, this can serve as a source for fund. We can try to identify, as I have said it earlier, development partners who have interest in education in general. We can easily explain to them, and I think it is very logical. Possibly they can accept to fund OER programs. Also, various institutions, they normally fund researchers and scholars in their institutions to carry out research, write books, to produce educational resources. If this institution can try to see that they make it a condition for the grant to promise that the end product will be released under open license, this can also serve as a source. We have so many actually.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I think from what you're saying, you know, what we may need to also focus on will be not just to create awareness, but also to advocate for policies that will help now push open education. Now, let me say that can push OER, you know, so that if an organization like TED Fund, they want to, because they have lots and lots of funds, as they are giving these funds, please let them also make it imperative, a part of what they are doing, that, hey, this policy that we have, whatever that we give you funds to do, whether it's a research or to travel for a conference, whatever, or to publish a book, please use these licenses. Because I believe that if that is done, it will help us a lot. Then the person also asks how it can be included in library and information science curriculum. Curriculum review takes quite some time, but bits and pieces of it can be a part of what our lecturers teach, especially if they learn about open licensing. Like somebody told us yesterday that she teaches children's literature. So in doing that, she can put in open licensing so that it can be a part of it too. Thank you. Then Professor Anunobi asked a question. How can we convince publishers who are insistent on publishing in the paywall mode? You see, and she said that more worrisome it is when these publications are sponsored by taxpayers' money. It's as if we pay twice for things that should be free. So how do we get publishers on our side? Do you think that they will agree when, you know, you're going to open it up? How do we get them on our side? Abdul, over to you again. How do you think we can get publishers on our side.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you for this opportunity. I think the issue is now very simple. Most of these multinational commercial publishers, they have already accepted the idea. They created inlets. If an author or an institution want to publish open access, possibly it is the issue of they are out to make profits, to get money. So during the negotiation, it can be negotiated that we want our product at the end to be published under open license. Possibly they will forecast the revenue they would have gotten if it is under ordinary arrangement, and calculate it and tell the subscriber, the clients, that okay, can you pay such amount so that at the end we will work for you, that the final product will be under open license. So if the client agree, he can go and look for the money, go and look for his institution to pay the money once and for all. And it is good to know that now, especially in US, libraries are taking over publishing activities in whole, not in part. Many of us are aware of the library publishing directory, an annual directory that lists libraries with publishing services. If you can go through it, you will see so many libraries with all publishing service. Author will submit manuscripts. They will subject it to expert reviews. They will do the editing. They will do all what is necessary for the final product to be a qualitative educational product. So this is possibly at the extreme. If our libraries can try to convince our institution to provide fund, they can try to skill their staff to have the necessary skills for undertaking publishing services, so that they can be a publisher within their domain. So with this arrangement, you don't even need a publisher, a commercial publisher. And at the end, the work will be produced under open license. It's very difficult for a library to publish a work nowadays under a normal traditional copyright arrangement. So actually, the issue is very simple. If we can work hard, if we can be committed, we can achieve it. Especially here in Nigeria, our publishers, most of our publishers are not in scholarly or academic publishing. So libraries there is a gap for our libraries to fill. And in some cases, we have university presses. University presses, they are not out to make profit. So libraries can collaborate with university presses to produce educational
materials,
so
resources.
We have so many ways actually. These are the few ones. Thank you.
Just hold on, Abdul, because she has gone on to ask that the core challenge is publishing with taxpayers' money as sponsored by intervention bodies like TETFund, like you had mentioned. And then these publications are still encumbered by copyright rights. Reservations. And she went on to say, what can we librarians do as a body? How do we tackle this? Because honestly, TETFund cannot take taxpayers' money, give to publishers to publish, and then they'll publish and lock it up, and you still pay. I mean, it doesn't make sense. So how can librarians go about this? That's what
this is very interesting. TETFund are not profit-making agencies. They give grants just for authors and other producers to produce quality educational resources. Since they are not out to make profit, if they can get this awareness, let us start by asking them, do they know what this all right reserve means? Possibly many people, they don't know what this all right reserve means. If they know, we should try to explain to them. Now it is high time to open it. That is to adopt open license. And the issue is very logical. As soon as they get the awareness, I don't think we can get difficulty in convincing the agency to adopt a policy that the resources they fund should be under open license. I think let us get some people, let us get some of us, more especially those at the higher level of the profession. Let us get them to go and talk to them about the issue. I think they can understand it.
Yes, I think what you're saying, it makes sense. But first of all, those people at the higher echelons, they need to know, they need to understand, they need to know what is open licensing. How can it help us? What is OER? How can it help us? I think what we may have to do at AFLIA would be to see how we can get heads of library institutions first. Let's speak to them to understand, because they are in key positions. They have that power to talk for others. Yes, somebody is saying that the Association of University Librarians can take that up, especially in Nigeria. I had written to them once and we started a conversation. Then there was a change of guard and the thing just stopped like that. They didn't talk to me again. And then the new people, I didn't even know who they are, but it's a conversation that we need to renew, because if we can get these heads, if we can get these organs on top to now know that, hey, these are the issues, this is how it will help libraries. This is not just libraries for library's sake, but knowledge for public good, because that is what is also important, so that they can know that when this thing happens, even if the publisher gives you a little bit of money on the side, you're invariably killing your profession. So I think that we will get to answer. The chairman of AUNU is on the WhatsApp platform. Oh, we are made then. Yeah, we'll take the discussion to the WhatsApp platform. Then also, somebody asked a question. This should be the last question, please, because we are really out of time. How do you engage the services of subject librarians on creating OER? How do you engage the services of subject librarians on creating OER?
Coordinator, can I say something on that, my initial question? Can I say something?
1 minute, Prof, just 1 minute, just 1 minute, because we are really out of time. Yeah, 1 minute, please.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. What I really need to say is you have hit the nail on the neck. It's on the head. It is that, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear, Prof.
Yes, it is that the AUNU should go to the ES, because where the library intervention is, that is where the production of information resources is under the same department. To tell them, because they do not understand this copyright, so that when they discuss with the executive secretary to remove this copyright for every textbook or journal or document produced with taxpayers' money that's sponsored by TESPON, the moment they remove it, that will make a lot of difference, because some of us who are actually digitizing these resources, we cannot, because the copyright is this material cannot be changed, cannot be modified, cannot be anything, copyright, so and so. Yet it is sponsored with taxpayers' money. So ONU can do a lot. Association of Nigerian Library Association, plus other association, national association in other countries, assuming they have such intervention, because it is out of France that the organization is establishment. Thank you very much.
We are going to bring this up in our WhatsApp group today. We are going to fish out the heads of university libraries, the head of ONU, whoever, so that we can start that advocacy. Okay, Liz, please. Liz wants to say something. Hello, Liz, please unmute yourself and go on. Thank you.
Hi, I'd like to speak about publishers because Chinwe has asked two very important questions. I'll answer the second question first about publications sponsored by taxpayer money. We cover it in the manual on open knowledge for African universities, but governments and funders already require that the research they support be published openly. So I think it's really important for librarians to have a better understanding of what these requirements are, because some of Chinwe's concerns may already be answered by these new national policies. And I think some African governments have also carried out the same kinds of policies. The second question about convincing publishers to publish openly, one of the problems is that African publishers make most of their income from educational publishing. And I think you all know that. So the question is how to convince them that they will not lose money by publishing openly. What would happen if they receive a contract to publish as opposed to the traditional arrangements between publishers and governments and the donor community, the development community? Neil Butcher and his colleagues, and I'm one of them, has done some work for the World Bank aimed at World Bank's program staff and also for other funders, which the AFLIA group may want to know about. And tomorrow I'll send you all the URL and you can read the policy document that Neil led. The other area is that we published 2 or 3 years ago a primer for publishers and other content creators on how to ensure that you don't lose money, but still can publish openly. And we're now in the process of updating that primer. And I will let AFLIA know once the final update is available. So there's a lot going on. And the question is really, how can librarians fit into existing efforts to do exactly what Chinwe is worried about? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz. That's quite a lot, you know, but we'll look at those documents and see if we can find a way out. Then also in the WhatsApp group, I've already asked for heads of libraries, and who is the chairman of ONU, so that we can start talking and know how can we help them to advocate? What do we need to do with them or for them? You know, so that we can get these things rolling. Then somebody asked, how do we engage the services of subject librarians on creating OER? I don't think that, I think that they are librarians already. And if they can join us to learn about OER, then they can really be strategic in us reaching to faculty members, in us reaching to people in different subject areas, so that we can now say, these are the OERs that already exist. These are the areas that you teach. You can create this by taking from this and this to create your own and stuff like that. So I think that we can do that. Hey, we've been here for almost 1 hour 30. minutes, and we can go on and on. But I think that we may have to do part 3, but let's go get all the things we talked about. Let's see how we can implement them. Then we can come back for part 3 of this. So on behalf of Hope, Dr. Hope, do you want to say just anything? 5 seconds, Dr. Hope.
That should be my last word now.
Yes. Your last words, please.
Okay. It has been a lively session, and I really enjoyed it. Librarians and other listeners, it's time for us to embrace OER. You know, we should come out and learn about it, get the knowledge, support it, and implement it in our libraries and institutions. We can see that AFLIA is ready for us. We cannot afford to be left behind. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Hello, Abdul. 5 seconds, please. Your last words.
Okay, let me use it to appreciate the work of AFLIA for bringing that issue to that level, and I hope it will be sustained, because it will do a lot in liberating our educational system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Your last words, 5 seconds.
Okay, thank you very much for listening to me, and also thank you to AFLIA for giving me this opportunity. I look forward to have more engagements. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tony. Hello, Tony. Any last words for us?
I don't know. Very quickly, the things I said, just keep informed. And you don't have to, it doesn't have to be expensive. You can find lots of online forums, and you can check out various things online. So as long as you have an internet connection, then you don't actually need to pop out money to do so. But that was what I would say. Keep informed and start teaching other people about OER. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Liz, can we hear from you? Last words?
Sure. I just want to thank AFLIA for all of your work in bringing these issues out and discussed amongst the librarian community. So that includes NICAM, it includes Stanley, and it very much includes Doreen, who was silent during the webinar, but I know she was here.
She's here. All right. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, you know, because we got people from Gambia, we got people from Zambia, from Zimbabwe, from Tanzania, from Kenya, from Nigeria, I wrote it down somewhere, yes, from Botswana, from South Africa, from Egypt. So thank you, everyone that joined us. Please, if you're not yet a part of the WhatsApp group, please, it's free, just join. We are learning there, you know, and it's really awesome. Then we hope to continue this conversations. Thank you, and have a lovely, lovely evening. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Esther, do you want to say the last words?
Thank you.
Well. Bye. Thank you, Gift. Thank you. Bye.